Listen up, my friends, because I'm about to lay down something so real, so raw, it might just shake the foundation of your soul. What's your name? Where are you at right now? Are you hunched over your phone in a dimly lit room, heart heavy with doubt? Or maybe you're out there grinding, pushing through a job that's draining your spirit, feeling like the weight of the world's pressing down on you. Perhaps you're a single parent, wiping tears in the quiet of the night, wondering if you're enough. Or maybe you're chasing a dream, but every step feels like you're running into a brick wall. I've been there, through the valleys, the storms, the moments where I questioned everything. But let me tell you, God's got a word for you today. And it ain't just words, it's a divine interruption. A holy wake-up call straight from heaven. Don't you dare scroll past this, because the Lord is knocking, saying, I know your pain, I know your fight, and I'm calling you back to me. This ain't just a message, it's a lifeline, a beacon in your darkness, and I'm here to deliver it with every ounce of fire in my bones. I've walked paths where the promise of God felt like a faint echo, where the world screamed, give up, but God's whisper kept me standing. I've stood at crossroads, staring at broken dreams, wondering if I'd ever see the light again. And I'm telling you, somebody out there, you're on the edge. You're bone-tired, your face fraying, and you're one more disappointment away from letting go of what God planted deep in your heart. Maybe it's a vision for your family, a calling to lead, or a hope for healing that feels out of reach. But you can't afford to miss this moment. This ain't just Denzel talking. This is God stirring something sacred in your spirit, calling you to rise, to reclaim His presence, to remember who you are in Him. So buckle up, because we're diving deep, and the Lord's got a plan to walk you through this with Him. Before we go any further, I need you to do 3 things, not for me, but because God's moving right now and your response matters. First, hit that like button so this message can reach another soul who's hurting, someone who needs this as much as you do. Second, subscribe and join this family of faith, because we're not meant to walk this journey alone, we're stronger together. Third, drop 777 in the comments. That number's about divinement, God putting every piece of your life back in order, like a puzzle coming together under His hand. What's your story? Where's God calling you today? Are you battling fear, loss, or maybe just the grind of life? Type it out, claim it in faith, because when you step out, heaven leans in. Don't just watch, respond, because this moment is holy ground. Now let's talk about the unmatched power of God's presence over any promise He's ever made to you. Let me hit you with a question that cuts deep. Have you ever clung to a promise from God, poured your heart into believing it, only to watch your life crumble anyway? You prayed until your knees ached. You trusted until your heart hurt, but what you're staring at now, bills piling up, relationships fraying, dreams deferred, looks nothing like what He spoke. You're asking, did I miss it? Did I hear Him wrong? Did God forget me? I've been there, my friends. I've stood in the wreckage of what I thought was my future, holding shattered pieces, wondering if I'd ever see God's plan come through. I've had nights where the silence was louder than my prayers, where I questioned if I was still in God's sight. But hear me loud and clear, the problem ain't the promise. The problem is when we get so fixated on the promise, the job, the healing, the breakthrough, that we lose the presence of the one who gave it. Because without God walking beside you, the destination's just a hollow shell, a trophy that don't mean nothing if He ain't there to share it with you. And God's saying, don't chase the land if I'm not in it. Don't settle for the blessing if it costs you my nearness. Picture this: Moses, a man who's seen the impossible plagues raining down on Egypt, the Red Sea splitting wide, manna falling from the sky like God's own provision. He's no rookie when it comes to faith. But up on Mount Sinai, while he's face to face with the Almighty, soaking in divine glory, the people down below start losing their grip. They're tired of waiting, restless in the wilderness, so they take their gold symbols of their freedom and melt it down to craft a golden calf. A god they can see, touch, control. In just over a month, they swap a covenant with the Creator for a counterfeit they made with their own hands. And God, in his holy righteousness, looks at their betrayal and says, I'll still give you the land I promised. I'll keep my word, send an angel to clear your enemies, give you the milk and honey. But my presence, I'm not going with you. That's a gut punch, because it's God saying, I'll honor my commitment, but my nearness ain't automatic if you're worshiping something else. Now, let's be real, most of us would jump at that deal. We'd say, okay, God, I get the dream, the house, the success. I'm good. I'll figure out the rest. We're so hungry for the outcome that we take the blessing and run, not noticing we left God behind. But not Moses. He don't play that. He pushes back, bold as fire, and says, Lord, if your presence ain't going with us, I ain't moving. You can keep the land, keep the promise, because I'd rather stay in this desert with you than step into paradise without you. That's a man who's tasted the real thing, who knows the difference between the gift and the giver. And God's calling you to that same fierce faith today. What's your name? What's stopping you from saying, God, I want you more than the breakthrough? Because the Lord's whispering, choose me, and I'll turn every step into holy ground. Choose me, and I'll make your wilderness a sanctuary. Moses wasn't always this way. This is the same guy who once hid in the desert, stuttering, doubting, running from his calling. He was scared to face Pharaoh, scared to lead. But after meeting God in that burning bush, after hearing his voice thunder, seeing his glory pass by on that mountain, something shifted in him. He got hooked on God's presence like a man who'd found water in a drought. He knew the land was nothing without the cloud guiding by day, the fire blazing by night. He knew victory was empty without the one who won the battle. And God's asking you, do you want me more than the dream? Are you willing to linger in the wilderness with me, trusting my pace rather than sprinting to the promise without my heart? Because his presence is your lifeline, your strength, your joy. Without it, you're just scraping by, not thriving. Without it, you're existing, not living the abundant life he promised. When Moses said, don't send us without you, he wasn't just praying. He was prophesying a truth that echoes through time. He knew the promised land would turn into another trap, another Egypt, if God wasn't at the center. It'd be a place of bondage dressed up as freedom, a shiny illusion that couldn't deliver true peace. And maybe that's why you're restless right now. You got the job you prayed for, but it's draining your soul. You got the relationship, but it's leaving you hollow. You got the house, but it don't feel like home. You stepped into what you thought was the blessing, but you left the one who blessed you behind. God's saying, come back to me. Let my presence fill the emptiness. Let my nearness heal what's broken. Where are you at? Are you chasing the land or craving the cloud? The Lord's calling you to choose him, because his presence turns deserts to sacred spaces, pain into purpose, ashes into altars. And here's the beauty. God heard Moses. He said, I'll go with you because I know you by name. That ain't just a promise, that's intimacy. The kind that makes your heart skip a beat. That's the Father saying, I see you, I love you. I'm walking with you through every storm, every doubt, every tear. And he's saying the same to you right now. You want to be known like that? Walk so close to him that his voice is louder than your fears. Refuse to take a step unless his presence is leading. Because a life that only works with God in it, that's the life he dreamed for you when he formed you. So pray it now. Lord, don't let me go anywhere your presence ain't guiding. Don't let me settle for the gift if it means losing you. That's my prayer, my anchor, and I'm begging you to make it yours too. Now let's face the raw battle between the promise God gave you and the present you're wrestling with. Let's get gut level honest about the struggle. Holding on to God's promise can feel like trying to grip sand in a hurricane. You're standing on his word, declaring it, believing it, but everything around you is shouting it's over. It ain't happening. You prayed for healing, but the doctor's report ain't changed, and your body's still aching. You believed for peace, but your mind's a war zone, thoughts racing like they're on fire. You hope for restoration, but your marriage is hanging by a thread, Your kids are drifting. Your heart's bleeding out. What's your name? What's the promise you're clutching that feels like it's slipping away? Because God sees you and He's saying, don't let go. I'm working in the silence. I'm shaping you in the shadows. That space between what God spoke and what you see, that's the crucible where your faith is forged. It's the battlefield where the enemy slinks in, whispering, God forgot you. You ain't chosen. That promise was a lie. But I'm here to silence that snake with the truth. The pain didn't erase God's word. The silence didn't cancel your calling. You ain't lost. You're being sculpted, refined, prepared for a purpose bigger than you can imagine. God's saying, trust me in the process because I'm building you to carry the promise with strength, with wisdom, with a heart that won't break under its weight. The waiting, the delays, the setbacks, they ain't punishment, they're purification. They're stripping away what don't belong so you can step into what's eternal. We love the promise when it first lands. We shout it from the rooftops, dream big, plan bold. It's like fire in our bones, lighting up our path, but the middle ground, that's the valley where most folks stumble, where faith gets tested, where the rubber meets the road. That's where golden calves get built out of impatience, out of fear, out of desperation to see something, anything that feels like progress. The Israelites did it while Moses was communing with God. They crafted an idol because they couldn't handle the weight. They needed control, something tangible, because the promise felt too far, too quiet. And we ain't much different. We settle for shortcuts, for cheap fixes, for things we can see because the unseen promise feels like it's mocking us. Maybe it's that job you took out of panic, not prayer. Maybe it's that relationship you forced because loneliness was too loud. Maybe it's the hustle you're killing yourself for, thinking it'll prove your worth. But God's saying, don't build what I didn't call you to carry. Don't trade my timing for your tension. I'm working behind the scenes and my plan is worth the wait. While the Israelites were crafting their idol, Moses was receiving holy instructions, divine blueprints that would shape a nation. While they were settling for glitter, God was forging a covenant that would echo through generations. And I'm telling you, God's doing the same for you right now. You can't see it, but He's moving, aligning people, opening doors, healing wounds, preparing ground you ain't even stepped on yet. The delaying, denial, it's divine orchestration. So don't trade eternity for temporary. Don't let doubt push you to build something God never meant for you to carry. Hold on. Even when it hurts, even when your hands are trembling, even when your heart's screaming for relief. Because the God who promised is still working. And His plan is bigger than your pain, deeper than your disappointment, stronger than your struggle. Moses didn't settle for the land without God. He stood firm and said, if you ain't with us, we ain't going. That's the cry of a soul who knows the promise maker is worth more than the promise itself. He'd seen too much of God's glory to settle for a victory without the victor. And God's calling you to that kind of relentless faith. What's your story? Are you building idols out of fear, out of impatience, or are you waiting on the cloud, trusting the fire? The Lord's saying, tear down the counterfeit and run back to me. I'm your source, your strength, your everything. I'm the one who makes the impossible possible. Don't let the frustration of delay birth something God never ordained. Stay the course because His presence is your promise. Let's dive deep into the danger of idols in disguise, because they ain't always golden calves gleaming in the sun. Sometimes they're subtle, sneaky, dressed up as the dreams we hold dear. The Israelites built that calf out of fear, impatience, distrust, a desperate need to feel in control when God felt distant. They took the gold of their deliverance and twisted it into something that chained them again. And we do the same, don't we? We build idols out of comfort, control, approval, things we think will save us when the waiting gets too heavy. That job you took just to feel secure even when God whispered, not yet. That relationship you clung to, ignoring the red flags because being alone felt scarier than being broken. That obsession with success, with likes, with status, because you couldn't feel God's love, so you chased the world's applause instead. I've been there chasing things I thought would fill the void, only to find they left me emptier than before. Idolatry don't always look evil. Sometimes it looks responsible, polished, celebrated. It's the hustle that everyone praises, the ambition that gets you claps, the image that makes you feel like you've made it. But anything you build without God's blessing won't stand in His presence. It's like a house on sand, looks good until the storm hits, then it's gone. What's your name? What's the idol you've been gripping, thinking it'll save you, when it's really stealing your peace? God's saying, let it go, because I'm your foundation. I'm the only one who won't crumble when life shakes you. While the Israelites were crafting their calf, Moses was meeting God, receiving divine wisdom that would outlast empires. They traded glory for dust, settling for a fake when the real was right above them. And that's the truth for you. God's working even when you can't see Him, even when the silence feels like abandonment. Don't mistake His quiet for absence. Don't let impatience push you to settle for less than His best, because anything you create outside of trust is already crumbling, even if it shines for a season. God's saying, tear it down and come back to me. I've got something eternal for you. Something that won't fade, something that'll carry you through. And here's the grace that blows my mind. Even after the calf, after the betrayal, God called Moses back. He didn't abandon His people. He renewed the covenant, stayed with them, loved them still. That's the God we serve, one who sees your mess, your missteps, your idols, and still says, I ain't done with you. Come back, and let's build something real. So don't stay stuck in the rubble of what you made in fear. Lift your hands, open your heart, and say, Lord, I choose you again. I want your presence more than my plans, more than my pride, more than my pain, because His presence is where freedom breathes, where healing flows, where destiny takes root. It's where you find the courage to let go of the counterfeit and grab hold of the eternal. Now let's wrestle with the weight of choosing the promise over God's presence, because this is where it gets heavy. God keeps His word always, no exceptions. If He promised you breakthrough, healing, restoration, a family reconciled, a calling fulfilled, it's coming. His promises are signed in His own blood, sealed by His faithfulness. But here's the truth that'll make you pause. He can give you the promise and still withhold His presence if your heart's chasing the gift over the giver. The Israelites broke God's heart with that calf, turned their backs on His glory. But He still said, I'll give you the land. I'll send an angel to clear the path. You'll get what I promised. But I ain't going with you. That's God saying, I'll honor my word, but my nearness, that's reserved for those who love me more than the outcome. Too many of us are chasing promises while our spirits are starving. We get the job, the platform, the money, and it looks like we're winning, but deep down, something's missing. The fire's gone, the peace is gone, the joy is gone, because we said yes to the gift and no to the giver. I've seen it, folks with big titles, big bank accounts, big followings, but their eyes are empty, their hearts are dry. They got the land, but they left the cloud behind. What's your name? Where's your heart at right now? Are you chasing what God can do for you, or are you craving who He is? Because His presence is precious, holy, weighty. It don't linger where it's taken for granted, where it's treated like a side dish instead of the main course. God told the Israelites, I won't go because my holiness would consume your rebellion. He wasn't playing games. His presence is fire, and it burns away what don't belong. But Moses refused that deal. He stood his ground and said, if you ain't with us, we ain't moving. I'd rather die in this desert with you than live in a palace without you. That's a man who's tasted the sweetness of God's nearness, who knows the difference between surface success and soul deep fulfillment. And God's calling you to that kind of hunger, that kind of resolve. Would you rather be in the wilderness with God's presence than the promised land without Him? Because His presence is the only thing that holds you when the battles rage, quiets the chaos when your mind's screaming, gives meaning to the miracles when they finally come. And when Moses pleaded, poured out his heart, God answered, I'll go with you, and I'll give you rest. That's the power of a soul that won't budge without God. That's the victory of a heart that says, I'd rather have nothing with you than everything without you. So ask yourself, am I living with His presence or just clinging to His promises? Have I reduced my faith to a checklist of outcomes, a to-do list for God? God's saying, come back to the mountain. Come back to the place where it's just you and me. If I ain't in it, don't want it. That's my prayer, my lifeline, and I'm inviting you to anchor your soul in it too. To everybody feeling stuck, let's unpack why God's pause is preparation, not punishment. Because I know some of you are there. You've been walking faithfully, trusting God's word, pouring out your heart in prayer, but all of a sudden, it feels like the world hit the brakes. Doors that were cracking open slammed shut. Momentum you were building fizzled out. People who cheered you on went silent, maybe even walked away. Opportunities you were ready for vanished like smoke. And now you're sitting there, heart racing, asking, did I mess up? Did I miss God's plan? Did he forget me? I see you, and I've been there staring at a dead, wondering if I'd ever move forward again. But hear me, God ain't forgotten you. He's paused you not to punish you, but to prepare you for what's next. The stillness ain't neglect. It's strategy. You think you're stuck, but you're being set up for a move of God that'll blow your mind. Think about the Israelites at the foot of Sinai. From their view, everything had stalled. The clouds stopped moving. Moses vanished up the mountain. God went quiet. They thought the story was over, that they'd been left in the dust. But what they couldn't see was that God was working overtime. Up on that mountain, he was giving Moses blueprints, laws, a vision to transform a ragtag group of former slaves into a holy nation, a covenant family that would carry his name. They weren't forsaken, they were being formed, shaped, prepared for a destiny they couldn't yet grasp. And God's doing the same for you right now. What's your story? Where do you feel stuck? Your career, your family. The Lord's saying, I'm working in the places you can't see. Trust my timing, because I'm building something you ain't ready to carry yet. God's not just a promise maker, he's a promise protector, a master craftsman. He won't let you walk into your calling too early and let it crush you under its weight. He won't release a blessing you ain't equipped to steward. If he slows you down, if he hits pause, it's not rejection, it's responsibility. He's being a good father saying, let Maine finish the work ahead of you, so when you step into it, you stand tall, not stumble. You're in a dark room right now, praying, listening, waiting, but it feels like nothing's moving. The enemy wants you to think you're abandoned, forgotten, left behind, but that dark room ain't where you're lost. It's where you're being developed. Like a photograph coming to life in the quiet. Picture a film editor in a cold, silent room piecing together raw footage. That's where the magic happens, where clarity sharpens, where colors deepen, where the story takes shape. Rush that process, expose the film too soon, and you ruin the picture. God's got you in that dark room, not to hide you, but to refine you. He's editing your story, aligning the scenes, adding depth to your character. So don't curse the delay, don't resent the quiet. God's shaping you in the silence, growing roots that'll hold you steady, building capacity to carry his glory. The next season ain't just about what you'll do, it's about who you'll be, unshakable, anchored, ready. And when God says, go, won't be scrambling, you'll be standing. Because you trusted the pause, believe he was moving when nothing else did. Real faith is about holding on through the fire, not just chasing the light. Faith ain't just about moving forward, claiming victories or stacking wins. It's about holding on when everything's falling apart, when the ground shakes, when the sky goes dark. It's easy to trust God when life's clicking, bills paid on time, doors swinging wide, people cheering your name. But real faith, that's waking up with tears soaking your pillow, heart heavy as stone, and still whispering, God, I trust you. That's faith that says, I believe, not because it feels good, not because the path's clear, but because you've decided God's good even when your life looks like a war zone. That's the faith that shifts mountains, shapes destinies, and makes heaven smile. Think about Abraham, waiting decades for a son, making mistakes, doubting, laughing at God's promise. David, anointed as king, but running through caves, betrayed, hunted, falling hard into sin. Peter, called to build the church, but denying Jesus when the pressure hit. They weren't perfect, far from it. They stumbled, they broke, they questioned. But God didn't cancel his word. Why? Because his faithfulness ain't tied to your performance, it's rooted in his unchanging character. What's your name? What's the failure you're carrying? The shame that's whispering you're disqualified. God's saying, I ain't done with you. Your mistakes didn't erase mine. I'm still writing your story. People may walk away when you mess up. They may judge, ghost, or write you off, but God ain't like them. When he says he's with you, he means it through the mud, the mess, the tears. His promises ain't yes if you're flawless. They're yes because he's God, period. So hold on, even when it hurts, even when your faith feels like a flicker in a storm. Faith ain't proven by how loud you shout or how high you jump. It's proven by how long you stand, how steady you stay when the world says quit. Your past don't define you. Your failure don't disqualify you. The God who called you is still calling, still preparing, still finishing what he started. So get back up, dust yourself off, keep walking, keep trusting. Because if he spoke it, it stands. If he began it, he'll bring it to completion. That's the faith God honors, not perfect, but persistent, not polished, but pressing on. Let's talk about the transformative power of God's presence. Because it's a game changer, a soul shifter, a life redeemer. It ain't just a warm, fuzzy feeling or a Sunday morning high. It's the living God stepping into your space, rewiring your heart, breathing hope into your bones. When I'm in his presence, depression that's been choking me starts to loosen its grip. Anxiety that's been screaming in my head falls silent. The heaviness in my soul, that weight I thought I'd carry forever, it begins to crack, to lift, to fade. Not because my problems disappear like magic, but because I'm anchored in the one who's bigger than them all. Hope ain't just a concept, it's a fire I feel again. Darkness trembles because it knows it can't survive where God's light is shining. In his presence, my faith stops being about outcomes, about getting the job, the healing, the answer. It becomes about intimacy, about knowing him, walking with him, hearing his heartbeat. I ain't just praying for the promise to show up. I'm discovering that his nearness is the promise, the treasure, the prize. The storm don't always stop raging, but I stop shaking in it. The valley don't vanish, but I walk through it with a different stride, head up, heart steady. Fear loses its claws, insecurities that used to scream at me go quiet. I find courage not from my own strength, but from being close to my Father, from feeling his hand on my shoulder. What's your story? Where's fear holding you back? Fear of failure, rejection, the unknown. God's saying, step into my presence and I'll make you bold. Not because you're strong, but because I'm with you. In his presence, I don't need to hustle to prove myself. I don't need to perform, to strive, to wear a mask. I'm already loved, already chosen, already known deeply, fully, flaws and all. I don't need a platform to validate me, don't need applause to keep me going. Because the God who knit me together is the same God walking beside me, and his nearness is all the affirmation I need. Forgiveness becomes possible in his presence. People I swore I'd never release, I start to let go. Not because I'm noble, but because his mercy drowns out my bitterness. I see myself in the light of his grace, and suddenly I realize I ain't better than those who hurt me. Healing begins not just in my body, but in my heart, my mind, my relationships. Wounds close, walls crumble, chains break. Worship in his presence ain't just a song on a playlist, it's a surrender, a pouring out of everything I am. I'm not lifting my hands because it's what's expected. I'm lifting them because I've got nothing left, and he's the only one who's never let me down. I'm not just mouthing words, I'm saying, God, take it all, my pain, my plans, my pride. That's where transformation sparks, not in perfect prayers or polished moments, but in raw, honest surrender. In his presence, I remember who I am, not my mistakes, not my losses, not the labels others slapped on me. I'm his child, formed with purpose, called with intention, filled with destiny. No failure, no detour, no shame can cancel what he started in me. Everything else fades in his presence, the noise of the world, the opinions of people, the expectations I put on myself. I stopped chasing signs, stopped begging for confirmation from every corner. Because once you've encountered his presence, you don't need proof, you just know he's real, like a truth carved into your soul. So don't chase evidence, chase encounter. One moment with God is worth more than a lifetime of explanations. Stop waiting for the stars to align, for the world to quiet down. Get still, get alone, cry out, Lord, I need you. because his presence is waiting and it changes everything: your perspective, your priorities, your peace. Building a life rooted in God's presence is where real transformation takes hold, in the quiet moments when nobody's watching, when the spotlight's off, when the crowd's gone. Moses knew this secret. He didn't wait for a preacher to hype him up, didn't need a worship band to set the mood. He pitched a tent outside the camp, a sacred space, and met God face to face, like a friend sharing secrets over coffee. He practiced the presence, built a rhythm of seeking God daily, not for show, but for survival. And that's what set him apart. He carried God's weight, his glory, because he cultivated in the secret place, in the early mornings, in the stillness where no one else was looking. Too many of us are leaning on secondhand fire, waiting for someone else to bring the spark. We're looking for the perfect sermon, the right worship song, the electric vibe of a conference to feel close to God. But if your connection to him hinges on someone else's anointing, you're running on borrowed oil, and that oil runs dry when life gets real. When the diagnosis hits, when the betrayal stings, when the loneliness creeps in, borrowed oil won't hold you. What's your name? When's the last time you got alone with God? Just you and him, no distractions? He's saying, come to me yourself. I'm waiting, arms open, ready to meet you right where you are. You got to shut the door, fall on your knees, pour out your heart, and say, God, I ain't leaving till you speak. I need your voice, your touch, your pressing. That's practicing the praying when you're saying the practicing when your soul's heavy, opening your Bible when the answers seem miles away. It ain't always pretty or emotional. Sometimes it's just showing up raw and real. But it's powerful because God meets the seeker, honors the hungry, reveals himself to those who keep knocking, keep chasing, keep craving him. The more you practice his presence, the more you see him everywhere, in the tension of a tough day, in the silence of a sleepless night, in the mundane moments of your commute. He becomes your counselor in decisions, your comforter in pain, your guide in confusion, not just in crisis, but in the everyday. This is where spiritual maturity takes root, not in flashy gifts or packed pews, but in a spirit that's sensitive to his whisper, a discernment that's sharp, a reflex that prays before it panics. The world don't need more hype, more noise, more performers. It needs people who carry God's presence, who walk into rooms and shift atmospheres because they've been with him. So build a life where God ain't an interruption, a box to check, a Sunday ritual. Make him the rhythm, the pulse, the heartbeat of your days. That's the life he's calling you to, a life that burns with his nearness. Here's a call to shift your life's direction and choose God's presence above everything else. Because this is the crux of it all. Let's get to the core. What's your life really built on? Not the values you post about, not the dreams you talk up, but the truth your days tell. What's driving you when the cameras are off, when the likes stop coming, when it's just you and your thoughts? Because I've lived long enough to know this. Anything less than God's presence will crack, crumble, collapse under the weight of life. Careers fade, relationships falter, money runs dry, applause dies out. But God's presence, it's the rock that holds, the anchor that stays, the fire that never goes out. We've been chasing progress, platforms, success, calling it God's will, when sometimes it's just our own ambition in holy wrapping paper. We've measured our worth by milestones, by followers, by bank accounts. But what's it worth if God ain't standing with you in it? I don't want the stage if he's not on it. I don't want the marriage if he's not in it. I don't want the blessing if I gotta leave his voice behind to get it. What's your story? What are you chasing that's pulling you from him? Even if it looks good on the outside, God's saying, come back to me. I'm your foundation, your beginning, your end. When his presence is your priority, your whole world shifts. You don't chase opportunities the same. You follow his whisper, even when it leads to quiet places. You don't panic when doors close because you trust the one who holds the keys. You don't compromise for a seat at the table because you refuse to go where his glory is glory is glory. That's the life I'm talking about, one that only works because God's in it, one that falls apart without him because he's the glue, the spark, the source. Redefine success, my friends. It ain't about who knows your name, it's about how deeply you know his. It ain't about what you build, it's about how surrendered your heart is to his will. Your legacy ain't in your resume, it's in the lives you touch because you walked with God. If you've drifted, if you've been building in your own strength, chasing dreams that lost their holy fire, it ain't too late to turn around. Get alone with God, lay it all down, your plans, your fears, your failures. Say, Lord, I want you more than anything. Strip away what don't belong and bring me back to you. Because his presence is where glory rests, where peace flows like a river, where purpose wakes up and sings. It's where you find the strength to say no to what's shiny but shallow, and yes to what's holy and hard. If you're still here, I know God's speaking to you, stirring something deep, something eternal. This ain't just a video, it's a divine appointment, a moment where heaven's leaning close. What's your name? Where's God calling you to shift, to surrender, to step out? Because he's inviting you to a life where his presence is everything, not a side note, not a Sunday check-in, but the heartbeat of your everyday. I've been through the fire, felt the weight of failure, the sting of loss, but I'm telling you, nothing, and I mean nothing, compares to walking with God, feeling his nearness, knowing he's got you, no matter what. So here's my challenge, my plea, my prayer for you. Don't chase the promise, chase his presence. I don't build idols out of fear or frustration, build altars out of faith, out of worship, out of trust. Get still, get real, pour out your heart and say, God, I'm all in. If you ain't it, I don't want it. If your presence ain't leading, I ain't moving. That's the prayer that changes everything, that realigns your life, that sets your feet on holy ground. And when you live like that, you'll find peace in the wildest storms, strength in the deepest silence, purpose in the sharpest pain. You'll walk different, love different, live different, because you're carrying his presence. And that's a fire the world can't put out. Now I need you to move in faith to respond to this moment. Drop your thoughts in the comments, what's God stirring in your heart. Share your prayer requests, your struggles, your hopes, because this family lifts each other up, prays for each other, fights other. Hit that like button, subscribe, join us, because we're building a community that chases God together, that holds each other steady in the storm. And if this message hit home, share it with someone who needs it, a friend, a coworker, a stranger who's hurting. Let's spread this fire. Let's light up the darkness with God's truth. My prayer for you is this: may you walk so close to God that his presence becomes your compass, your comfort, your courage. May you say no to anything that pulls you from him, no matter how tempting, how shiny. May you live a life that only works because he's in it, a life that shines because his glory's on it. You ain't alone, you ain't forgotten. And God's got you right now, right here, right in the middle of your mess. So rise up, keep going, keep seeking, and let his presence lead you home. Let's do this, family, together with God.